Joining me now, Admiral James Stavridis, former Supreme Allied Commander at NATO and MSNBC Chief International Analyst. I want to ask you about the news that just broke, and that is a confirmation that 4 more hostages have died. 3 of them are elderly. One is 83 years old. And NBC had done an interview with Hersh Goldberg, Poland's mom and dad. He's the 23-year-old Israeli-American. And part of what his dad said was this: what we have not accomplished militarily in 241 days, I don't know that another week or 2 or 5 is incrementally going to really matter. I don't think these politicians have the right to continue to say we're just going to ignore 125 of our people, meaning the remaining hostages. Is he right from a military standpoint? I know from a human standpoint, it's hard to ignore, and we shouldn't ignore the parents. But is what he's saying right? What are we really going to accomplish in the next 5 weeks or so that we haven't already?
I think he is very close. And I'll put it this way. If Hamas started with, let's say, 60, 70,000 active, capable foot soldiers, my assessment is they're down to maybe 4,000. So let's call it 90 to 95% of their fighting strength has been eliminated. The tunnel complex, Chris, 400 miles of tunnels. I'd say the Israelis are now in possession, in the process of decommissioning, destroying probably 80% plus of that tunnel complex, maybe a bit more. So militarily, certainly Hamas no longer has the ability to launch a significant October 7th-like attack. 80 to 90% of their combat capability has been degraded. I think it is a very reasonable question for the parent of a hostage or any Israeli citizen to ask, or indeed any global citizen, what more do you have to do? The answer is militarily, not a heck of a lot.
So let's talk about the specifics of his proposal as outlined by President Biden. 3 phases. First would include a 6-week ceasefire, more aid deliveries, the withdrawal of some Israeli troops, and the exchange of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners for some hostages, women, children. And then later, according to this deal, full withdrawal of Israeli troops, a permanent cessation of hostilities, that's what Biden called it, which still, of course, has to be negotiated, and the release of all the remaining hostages, as well as a period of reconstruction of Gaza. Look, all the details can still get in the way, but do you see a way forward that somehow trust can be built from where we are now to get to those final stages, or for that matter, step 1?
I think it is possible, but at this moment, as I assess the forces that push both in favor of a ceasefire and against a ceasefire, I think it's, Chris, about a 1 in 3 chance at best. Not 0, but it's not even 50-50 quite yet. The reason is, on the Hamas side of the equation, they continue to resolutely demand that essentially Israel pull out of Gaza and leave them in control. That's a red line for essentially the entire Israeli population, certainly the Netanyahu government. On the pro-ceasefire side, President Biden has put the full force and weight of American influence into convincing Israel to do this, and then working with our Arab allies, Egypt and Qatar, who kind of control some of the influencers in the Hamas side. So there are forces that are going back and forth at this moment. Bottom line, for those who are following this, watch where does Ambassador Bill Burns, the director of the CIA, go? These days, he's often in Cairo. That's the epicenter of these negotiations. I think that, final thought, Chris, if it doesn't get done now, it's pretty hard to see how it would get done in the future.
Are there true influencers, true pressure points? Joe Biden hasn't accomplished it. The heartbreaking countless numbers of interviews and press conferences from family members like Hersh's parents haven't accomplished it. The hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of Israel haven't accomplished it. So what will?
At this point, the best hope for the ceasefire would be the U.S. pressure on the Israeli government using the leverage of the billions of dollars of military support we provide to Israel. On the Arab side of the house here, I think the Arab world has pushed Hamas as far as they can. The one player we haven't mentioned that gets a vote in all this, Iran. Perhaps by putting more economic and potentially military pressure on Iran, you could obtain Iran's influence to try and pressure Hamas and to take this settlement. But again, Chris, these are all the reasons I sadly assess this to be 1 in 3 at best.
Admiral James Stavridis, always great to have your expertise. Thank you.